pacing is fluid, the story keeps moving at a decent rate even when the action slows down, and it's the chemistry between the protagonists that keep it engaging. Whether it's Toby and Julia on the road trip from New York to Los Angeles, or Maverick, Beastie, and Finn. Some of the more exciting aspects is the road trip across the country from Mount Crisco, New York to San Francisco, California, where you see the bonding between Julia and Toby and how they slowly warm up to each other. There is tension between the two, but that begins to ease when she learns of what happens to Pete, to which he sets Monarch straight on his podcast.
There were 3 cars in the race the day that Pete died, that's a fact. And anyone that says that Toby is responsible for Pete's death, answer this. Why jump parole in New York knowing that you are going to be rearrested and do serious time unless you are innocent and hell-bent to right a wrong?
That brings us to the main plot of the movie, being the act of avenging Peter for his death by Dino. When one of your own is taken, it never sits right with you. Toby looks out for his crew as they would for him. They're a family, and that really shows with the lengths that they go to for him, with Maverick being the eye in the sky, with Beastie and Finn being road support. Speaking of Finn, if you want to know one way of quitting your job so that you can never go back, well...
Have a nice day, you miserable bastards.
Well, there's one way to do it. And of course, I have to talk about what is an equal star of the movie, the modified 2014 Ford Mustang. As someone who's a Mustang enthusiast, the way this car performs is nothing short of excellent, and the chase scenes are well planned to where it feels like the video game is jumping to the big screen. The biggest ouch for me was when it's wrecked and you know that the hero car of the movie is not going to be competing in the De Leon. As to how she would have fared is something better left up to the racing experts, but that said, it would have been interesting to see. And then to seeing the debut of the 2015 Ford Mustang, the 6th generation of the pony car at the end of the movie, was great. To summarize, I feel like this was a nice competition piece for Fast and the Furious. While the latter has been around for 14 years at this point, it was refreshing to see a car movie that was more focused on cars and racing, and not the Avengers in cars. Because, let's be honest with ourselves here folks, if we weigh up the brass taxes of that franchise from what it had become, it was far removed from street racing and basically became Iron Man and Captain America in muscle and tuner cars. Although it'd be interesting to see Iron Man in a Mustang. This guy knows how to emote. Aaron plays the stoic Toby Marshall well, relying more on his actions rather than dialogue, and especially the non-verbal acting he conveys through his eyes. Especially when he's looking at Dino before the De Leon begins and he's basically saying, "I'm going to end you," before even uttering a line of dialogue. He plays well off his crew of castmates and Imogen Poots. There seems to be a common theme in Hollywood at the moment that someone likes to dial A for asshole when they need a heel.
Language.
Shut up. Whether it's Hugo Weaving as Megatron and Agent Smith to now Cooper in Dracula Untold and the douche he now plays in Dino. Say what we will about the merits of his character, or lack of, he plays the suave, arrogant, and I'm better than you type to the letter. Right from the moment he steps out of his Merc, you hate him, and when you see him commit first-degree murder against Pete, there ain't no redemption for him. The love interest of Toby Marshall. I wasn't a fan of how she comes across as the stereotypical stuck-up posh English girl, as that trope and stereotype wore out its welcome about as quickly as the Rickroll. Which, by the way, people, is 2022. It's not cute anymore. Despite that, there's genuine chemistry between the two, as they had worked previously on A Long Way Down. So the fact there is already chemistry does aid the story. Like Michael Keaton, Kid Cudi has a lot of charm and charisma and brings a lot of humour to the story whenever he's defending an onslaught of insults with regards to Liar 1 for claiming to fly an Apache helicopter.
Roger that, Liar 1.
Man, you back in the crew ball in 10 minutes and you already up my skirt talking shit. You know, man, you gonna rue the day you started calling me that.
A guy with a lot of attitude and moxie as a member of Toby's crew, he feeds well off of Rami Malek with the camaraderie that they bring. Aside from being the technical IT wizard that looks at the logistics of the races and to how he quits his job to go aid Toby to enter the De Leon, he really doesn't get a lot to do. Which is criminal when you consider that 4 years later he would put on an Oscar-winning performance as the late Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. Pure charisma. Every scene with Keaton is just a delight as the podcaster Monarch, a former race driver that created the De Leon, where a collection of drivers race for winner-takes-all of the cars that enter the race. Dakota really does not get given enough to do as Toby's old flame and the fiancée of Dino, which is a shame when we could see what she could do in 50 Shades of Grey, which I'm sure a lot of people watch for her acting. Right. What he said. Harrison has a lot of character as Anita's younger brother and who looks up to Toby as his friend and older brother. What really aids the flick is the zero CG in this movie. Everything's done practically. And that's especially pleasing when you see them replicating Kit's turbo boost from Knight Rider. I think audiences appreciate when stunts and effects are done for real, as despite how good CG has gotten over the years, the trained eye can still tell the difference. So when you see the Mustang go through the punishment that it does, you know that it's authentic. So is the air rescue from Maverick. And it's painful when you see the car get wrecked near the third act. Oh, that hurt. Really did. So safe to say, the effects were pleasing, and especially when you know that they were done for real. Nathan First assumed the role of composer for this picture. His credits range from the Bionicle direct-to-video series, Roxy Hunter, Datascape, and The Curse of the Dream Witch, of which he co-directed the latter. I feel like his scores for the movie are what you'd expect from a video game soundtrack, but done in a way that it complements the movie score without it feeling too much like a video game. You know, it's always a struggle when you adapt a story from one media to the other and being able to tell it in another form while being respectful to where it came from. This is something that Junkie XL excels at, see what I did there, with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie franchise. He's able to bring in subtle references to the original Mega Drive scores, but where it sounds epic, especially his take on the Green Hill Zone theme at the end of the first movie. Each score serves its purpose, from the death of Pete with the anguish and despair that Toby experiences, which enhances the scene along with Paul's great emoting, and the contemplative scenes where Toby's thinking about Pete on his journey to California, and the various action scenes of car chases that really just put you in the game. Despite my positive critique of the movie, it did not fare as well as it would have cared for. On a budget of $66 million, it only took in $203 million at the box office, which if you inflate it for 2022, it wouldn't fare that much better with it being worth $243 million. And as we all know, if you're below 300 mil, you're not a hit. Sorry. Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune had this to say. Paul has talent, though the actor's idea of simmering intensity in the context of Need for Speed comes off more like a serial killer in the making. Cooper, by contrast, seems to be having fun, displaying a dashing, dastardly sexy beast. He added, at its occasional best, the thrills in the film recall the delirious fun of the Fast and Furious franchise. There were plans of shooting the sequel in China, but nothing more has been said since 2014, leading many to presume that the project is cancelled. The movie has been enjoyed since 2014 on DVD and Blu-ray. I'm MJ Knight, and this was Need for Speed.